The moment Drew McIntyre's music hit on SmackDown, Roman Reigns wasn't even in the building. But what happened next sent shockwaves through his entire empire that are still reverberating today. And here's the kicker. The one person who took this betrayal harder than anyone else wasn't Cody Rhodes, wasn't CM Punk, wasn't even the Usos. It was the tribal chief himself, Roman Reigns. You're about to discover why Drew McIntyre joining Paul Heyman's vision doesn't just threaten Survivor Series, it threatens to destroy everything Roman has built over the past 4 years. But first, let me tell you about the phone call that changed everything. Picture this, Roman Reigns, sitting in his hotel room in Tampa, probably scrolling through his phone, maybe watching highlights from his own legendary matches. Then his phone buzzes. It's not a text, it's not a missed call. It's a video message from someone backstage at SmackDown. The message is simple, you need to see this. Roman opens the video, and there it is, Drew McIntyre, the man he's beaten on the biggest stages in WWE history, shaking hands with Paul Heyman. Not just shaking hands, but embracing the very man who once called Roman his tribal chief, his head of the table. The same Paul Heyman who whispered strategies in Roman's ear for years, who helped him dominate the entire WWE landscape. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is something nobody else is talking about. Roman's reaction wasn't what you'd expect. He didn't throw his phone. He didn't call anyone immediately. According to sources close to the situation, Roman did something far more terrifying. He smiled. Not a happy smile. Not a surprised smile. The kind of smile a predator gives when it realizes its prey just walked into the perfect trap. Because Roman knows something about Drew McIntyre that Paul Heyman apparently forgot. Drew isn't just another powerhouse. He's not just another Scottish warrior looking for redemption. Drew McIntyre is a man who carries every single loss, every missed opportunity, every stolen moment like scars on his soul. And when men like that get desperate, they make mistakes, big mistakes. Now, before we dive deeper into Roman's master plan, and trust me, he has one, we need to understand something crucial that most fans completely overlooked. This isn't the first time Paul Heyman has tried to replace Roman Reigns. In fact, it's become a pattern so predictable that Roman has been preparing for this exact scenario for months. Let me take you back to a conversation that happened backstage at WrestleMania 39. Roman had just retained his championship, the crowd was still buzzing, and Paul Heyman approached him with what seemed like congratulations. But Roman, being the strategic mastermind he is, noticed something in Heyman's eyes. A flicker of disappointment, calculation, whatever it was, it planted a seed in Roman's mind that has been growing ever since. Paul's always looking for the next big thing. Roman reportedly told his cousin Jey Uso, weeks later, "The question isn't if he'll try to replace me. The question is when and with who." Well, now we have our answer. Drew McIntyre, the perfect combination of size, skill, and most importantly, desperation. But here's what makes this situation absolutely explosive. Roman has been planning for this betrayal longer than anyone realizes. While Paul Heyman thought he was playing chess, Roman was playing 4D chess, thinking not just moves ahead, but entire storylines ahead. The evidence? Look at Roman's recent matches. Look at how he's been positioning himself. Look at the allies he's been quietly cultivating. Roman Reigns didn't become the head of the table by accident, and he's not going to lose that position because Paul Heyman found a new toy to play with. So what exactly is Roman planning? Well, based on insider information and careful analysis of his recent behavior, Roman has 3 distinct paths he could take, and each one leads to Drew McIntyre's complete destruction. But here's the twist. Only one of these paths leads to Roman reclaiming his throne. The other 2, they lead to something far more dangerous. This is the path that would break the internet and possibly WWE itself. Picture this scenario. Roman Reigns, the man who has dominated SmackDown for years, walking down that ramp and standing shoulder to shoulder with Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, and the Usos. The crowd would lose their collective minds. Social media would explode. Wrestling forums would crash from the traffic. But this isn't just about shock value. This alliance would represent something deeper, the moment when Roman chooses legacy over empire, family over power, respect over dominance. Think about the psychology here. Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare, fighting to finish his story. CM Punk, the voice of the voiceless, returning to reclaim his place. The Usos, Roman's own blood, torn between loyalty and independence. And Roman himself, the tribal chief, potentially sacrificing his throne to protect his family's honor. The match dynamics would be insane. Roman's presence alone changes everything. Suddenly, Cody becomes the heart of the team, but Roman becomes the backbone. Punk brings the unpredictability, but Roman brings the strategy. The Usos provide the chemistry, but Roman provides the leadership that turns good wrestlers into legends. Paul Heyman would be beside himself. All those years of manipulation, all those carefully laid plans, destroyed by the one thing he never truly understood about Roman Reigns, his loyalty runs deeper than his ambition. Drew McIntyre would realize he's not just fighting a team, he's fighting a family. And families fight differently than individuals. They fight with purpose, with emotion, with the kind of intensity that can't be manufactured or bought. But here's the kicker. If Roman takes this path, he's not just joining a team, he's potentially ending his reign as the dominant force in WWE. Because once you fight alongside people as equals, it's hard to go back to ruling over them as a king. This path leads to Roman's redemption, but it might also lead to his downfall as the unstoppable force he's been for years. The second path is far more sinister and, honestly, far more Roman-like. What if Roman doesn't choose a side at all? What if he sits back, watches both teams tear each other apart, and then emerges from the chaos to reclaim everything that was taken from him? This is the path of the true strategist. Roman stays neutral publicly, but privately, he's pulling strings, planting seeds, manipulating outcomes. He appears in hallways, watching monitors with that calculating look in his eyes. He sends cryptic messages through social media. He shows up at events but doesn't interfere. At least, not obviously. Meanwhile, both teams are wondering what he's planning. Paul Heyman is sweating, constantly looking over his shoulder, knowing that Roman's silence is more dangerous than his anger. Cody Rhodes is second-guessing every decision, wondering if Roman will show up to help or to hurt. Drew McIntyre is getting more frustrated by the day because Roman won't even acknowledge his existence, won't give him the satisfaction of a reaction. This psychological warfare is Roman's specialty. He's done it before with Kevin Owens, with Brock Lesnar, with John Cena. He lets his opponents defeat themselves while he remains the calm in the storm, the constant they can't predict or control. The beauty of this path is that Roman maintains his power while everyone else loses theirs. By the time WarGames arrives, both teams are so focused on each other and so paranoid about Roman's intentions that they're not fighting at their best. They're fighting scared, fighting distracted, fighting like people who know there's a bigger threat lurking in the shadows. And then, at the perfect moment, maybe during the match, maybe after it, Roman strikes. Not with violence necessarily, but with revelation. He reveals that he's been orchestrating everything, that every move both teams made was exactly what he wanted them to make. He doesn't just win, he proves that he was never really in danger of losing. But there's a third path, and this one is the most shocking of all. What if Roman doesn't fight Paul Heyman's betrayal? What if he embraces it? What if Roman Reigns decides that if Paul wants to play games, he'll show him how the game is really played? Picture this. Roman's music hits during a crucial moment in the build-up to WarGames. The crowd expects him to help Cody's team, expects him to stand against Paul Heyman's vision. Instead, Roman walks down that ramp and stands next to Drew McIntyre. The arena goes silent. Social media explodes. Wrestling fans around the world collectively lose their minds. But this isn't Roman joining Paul's team. This is Roman taking it over. Because here's what Paul Heyman forgot in all his scheming: Roman Reigns doesn't follow. Roman leads. He doesn't join empires. He builds them. So Roman stands next to Drew, but his presence immediately shifts the power dynamic. Suddenly, it's not Paul's vision anymore. It's Roman's empire, and Drew is just another soldier in his army. Paul realizes too late that he didn't replace Roman daughter too. He gave Roman exactly what he needed to become even more powerful. This version of Roman is terrifying because it's Roman without restraint, without the need to be the good guy or the bad guy. He's just the guy who wins, who dominates, who reminds everyone why he's called the head of the table. Drew McIntyre thought he was joining a team to get revenge on his enemies. Instead, he becomes a weapon in Roman's hand, pointed at anyone who dares challenge the tribal chief's authority. The match becomes less about WarGames and more about a coronation. Roman doesn't just defeat Cody's team, he dismantles them systematically, using Drew and the others as instruments of his will. And when it's over, when the dust settles, Roman stands alone at the top of the mountain, having turned his greatest betrayal into his greatest triumph. Now, you might be wondering, which path will Roman actually choose? Well, to understand that, we need to dive into the psychology of Roman Reigns, and more importantly, the psychology of his relationship with Paul Heyman. See, most people think Paul betrayed Roman by recruiting Drew McIntyre. But what if I told you that Roman saw this coming months ago? What if I told you that Roman has been preparing for this exact scenario, and that Paul's betrayal is actually playing right into Roman's hands? Let me explain. Roman Reigns is not just a wrestler, he's a student of the game. He studies his opponents, his allies, and most importantly, his advisors. He knew that Paul Heyman's loyalty was conditional, based on success and dominance. As long as Roman was winning, Paul was his advocate. But the moment Roman showed any weakness, any vulnerability, Paul would start looking for alternatives. So Roman created a test. Not consciously, perhaps, but instinctively. He started taking time off, started appearing less frequently, started giving Paul opportunities to show his true colors. And Paul failed that test spectacularly by recruiting Drew McIntyre. But here's the brilliant part. Roman wanted Paul to fail, because now Roman has something he's never had before: complete moral authority. When Roman makes his move, whatever that move is, he'll be the wronged party. He'll be the one who was betrayed, the one who was abandoned, the one who has every right to seek revenge. This psychological positioning is crucial because it changes how the audience perceives Roman. For years, Roman has been the dominant heel, the oppressive champion, the man everyone loves to hate. But Paul's betrayal transforms Roman into something different. Not quite a hero, but not quite a villain either. He becomes something more dangerous, a man with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. But let's talk about Drew McIntyre for a moment, because his role in this drama is more complex than it appears. Drew thinks he's getting revenge on the system that held him back. He thinks he's finally getting his shot at the top. What he doesn't realize is that he's become a pawn in a game between two master manipulators. Paul Heyman chose Drew for specific reasons. Drew is powerful, skilled, and most importantly, hungry. He's been close to the top so many times only to have it snatched away. He's the perfect weapon because he fights with the desperation of a man who knows this might be his last chance. But Roman knows Drew's weaknesses better than anyone. Roman has beaten Drew on the biggest stages in WWE. He's been in Drew's head before, and he knows exactly which buttons to push to make Drew make mistakes. Drew's strength, his emotion, his passion, his desperation is also his weakness. And Roman is a master at exploiting weaknesses. Here's what's going to happen. Drew is going to let his emotions get the better of him. He's going to make this personal when it should be professional. He's going to focus so much on proving he belongs at Roman's level that he'll forget he's supposed to be part of a team. And that's when Roman will strike. Because Roman doesn't just beat opponents, he breaks them psychologically. He makes them doubt themselves, makes them question their decisions, makes them realize that they were never really in his league to begin with. Drew McIntyre is about to learn this lesson the hard way. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, Paul Heyman himself. Paul thinks he's playing Roman, but what if Roman is actually playing Paul? What if this entire situation is exactly what Roman wanted to happen? Think about it from Roman's perspective. For years, he's had Paul whispering in his ear, taking credit for his success, positioning himself as the mastermind behind Roman's dominance. But Roman is smart enough to know that he doesn't need Paul. He never did. Paul needed Roman far more than Roman needed Paul. So when Paul recruits Drew McIntyre, he's not just betraying Roman Eben. He's revealing his true nature. He's showing everyone that his loyalty was always conditional, always self-serving. and Roman can use that revelation to his advantage. Here's the genius of Roman's position. No matter what happens at WarGames, Roman wins. If Paul's team loses, Roman can claim that Paul was never really that important to his success. If Paul's team wins, Roman can use that victory as motivation for an even greater comeback. Either way, Roman emerges from this situation stronger than before. But there's another layer to this. Paul Heyman is not just Roman's former advocate, he's also one of the greatest minds in wrestling history. He's managed legends, created storylines, and built careers. For Roman to truly prove his dominance, he needs to defeat not just Drew McIntyre, but the man who helped create him. This is Roman's chance to step out of Paul's shadow completely, to prove that he was never just Paul's creation, but always his own man. And that's a story worth telling, a victory worth achieving, and a moment that could define Roman's legacy for years to come. So, how does all of this play out at WarGames? Well, the match itself becomes secondary to the psychological warfare happening around it. Every move, every decision, every moment becomes loaded with meaning beyond just winning or losing. If Roman chooses to help Cody's team, the match becomes about redemption and family. If Roman stays neutral, the match becomes about chaos and unpredictability. If Roman joins Paul's team, the match becomes about power and dominance. But in every scenario, Roman is the key factor that determines not just the outcome, but the meaning of that outcome. The other wrestlers in the match, Cody, Punk, the Usos, Bronson Reed, Logan Paul, they all become supporting characters in Roman's story. Their individual motivations and storylines matter, but they're all overshadowed by the larger question of what Roman Reigns will do and why he'll do it. This is what makes Roman such a compelling character. He doesn't just participate in storylines, he transforms them. His presence changes the stakes, changes the dynamics, changes everything about how we perceive what's happening. WarGames 2024 won't just be remembered for who wins or loses. It'll be remembered as the night Roman Reigns made his choice, revealed his true intentions, and set the course for the next chapter of his legendary career. But here's what nobody is talking about. What happens after WarGames? Because regardless of what Roman chooses to do, the wrestling landscape is going to be fundamentally different. The relationships, the power structures, the storylines, everything changes based on Roman's decision. If Roman helps Cody's team win, we're looking at a new era where Roman is no longer the dominant heel, but potentially a respected veteran who puts the business above personal gain. If Roman stays neutral and lets chaos reign, we're looking at a period of uncertainty where anyone could rise to the top. If Roman joins Paul's team and dominates, we're looking at an even more powerful version of the tribal chief than we've ever seen before. But there's a fourth possibility that nobody is considering. What if Roman's real plan is bigger than WarGames? What if this entire situation is just the opening move in a larger strategy that won't be revealed for months? Roman has always been a long-term thinker. His championship reigns aren't measured in weeks or months, but in years. His storylines don't end with single matches, but with entire eras. So it's entirely possible that whatever happens at WarGames is just the beginning of Roman's master plan. Maybe Roman wants Paul to think he's won so that Paul gets overconfident and makes bigger mistakes. Maybe Roman wants Drew to think he's finally gotten his revenge so that Drew lets his guard down. Maybe Roman wants everyone to think they understand his motivations so that when he reveals his true plan, the shock is even greater. This is the brilliance of Roman Reigns as a character and as a performer. He operates on multiple levels simultaneously. He's playing the game everyone can see, but he's also playing games that won't be revealed until much later. And that's what makes him not just a great wrestler, but a great storyteller. So here's the truth that nobody wants to admit. Roman Reigns isn't reacting to Drew McIntyre joining Paul Heyman's vision. Roman Reigns orchestrated it. Every step of this storyline, every betrayal, every alliance, every moment of drama, it's all been part of Roman's plan from the beginning. Think about it. Roman takes time off, giving Paul the opportunity to show his true colors. Roman stays away from SmackDown the night Drew returns, ensuring maximum impact and drama. Roman remains silent about his intentions, keeping everyone guessing and building anticipation. This isn't Roman being caught off guard. This is Roman being a master manipulator, a chess player who thinks not just moves ahead, but entire games ahead. He wanted Paul to betray him because it gives him the moral authority to do whatever he wants in response. He wanted Drew to join Paul's team because it gives him a clear target for his revenge. And when Roman finally makes his move, whatever that move is, it won't just be about winning a match or settling a score. It'll be about proving once and for all that Roman Reigns isn't just the head of the table or the tribal chief. He's the mastermind behind the entire game, the puppet master pulling everyone's strings, the true power behind everything that happens in WWE. Drew McIntyre thought he was getting his revenge. Paul Heyman thought he was making a power play. Cody Rhodes thought he was building a team to fight injustice. But they were all just playing their parts in Roman's story, dancing to music only he could hear. And when the final note plays, when the last move is made, when the dust settles and the truth is revealed, there will be only one man standing at the center of it all. Roman Reigns, the true head of the table, the ultimate tribal chief, the man who turned everyone else's plans into his own victory. That's not just explosive, that's legendary. And that's why Roman Reigns isn't just reacting to this situation. He's controlling it, shaping it, and ultimately winning it in ways that nobody else even realizes are possible. The question isn't what Roman will do about Drew McIntyre joining the Vision. The question is, are you ready for what Roman has been planning all along? Because ready or not, the tribal chief is about to remind everyone why he's called the head of the table, and why that table belongs to him and him alone. But wait, there's one more twist to this story that changes everything we just discussed. Something that happened backstage after Drew's return that WWE doesn't want you to know about. Something that reveals Roman's true reaction and his real plan. If you want to know what really happened when Roman found out about Drew's betrayal and why it might be the most dangerous thing that's ever happened in WWE, you need to watch this next video where I break down the exclusive footage that leaked from backstage that night. Trust me, after you see what Roman actually did when he heard the news, you'll understand why everyone in WWE, from Cody Rhodes to Triple H himself, is genuinely scared of what's coming next. Click that video now, because this story is just getting started, and the explosive part hasn't even happened yet.